Good afternoon. It's Wednesday, January 13th. I'm Aryeh O'Sullivan, and this is IBA News broadcasting from Jerusalem. Israeli Air Force jets this morning struck a terror cell west of Beit Lahia in northern Gaza. The cell was spotted planting an explosive device near the Gaza border fence. The army said that terrorists were hit shortly before the bomb exploded. Palestinian reports out of Gaza said one Palestinian was killed and 3 others wounded in the bombardment. Prior to the attack, the Israeli army asked farmers working their plots near the Gaza border to refrain from going out and keeping a distance of at least 1,000 meters from the frontier, fearing possible retaliation by terrorists. Tel Aviv terrorist Nashat Milhem was buried in his hometown of Aura before dawn this morning in what was described as a low-key funeral with a limited number of people attending. Late last night, police informed Milhem's family they could take the body from the Abu Kabir Forensic Institute for burial. The body was transported by ambulance to the town under heavy police guard. During the funeral, a police helicopter hovered overhead, monitoring the service and prepared to deal with any outbreak of violence. Initially, police had refused to release the terrorist's body, fearing the funeral would turn into a propaganda event or show of support or incitement with terror. Milhem, who gunned down and murdered 3 Israelis in Tel Aviv, was killed in a gun battle with police and Shin Bet forces last Friday, culminating a week-long nationwide manhunt. A new diplomatic controversy over Sweden's foreign minister's call to probe the number of Palestinians killed by soldiers in recent wave of violence and determine the legality of Israel's actions. Deputy Foreign Minister Tzipi Hotovely today reiterated that a decision was made not to advance a request by the Swedish foreign minister to visit Israel. IBA's Marko Dudkiewicz has this report.
Israel's foreign ministry lashed out at Sweden's foreign minister Margot Wallström, accusing her of supporting terrorism and encouraging violence. Speaking before the Swedish parliament Tuesday, Wallström called for an investigation to determine if Israel is guilty of extrajudicial killings of Palestinians during the recent wave of violence. It is vital there is a thorough, credible investigation into these deaths, in order to clarify and bring about possible accountability, she said. A statement issued by the Foreign Ministry described her comments irresponsible and delirious statements that support terror and encourage violence. Science and Technology and Space Minister Ophir Akuna said an investigation should be conducted to determine how a woman who bluntly hates Israel was elected and holds the role of Foreign Minister. Opposition leader Itzhak Herzog, Tzipi Livni and former Foreign Minister Avigdor Lieberman all denounced Wallström. Israel has a moral army and strong judicial system, Livni said, adding Israel will not accept any country meddling in its affairs. Herzog said it was interesting Sweden did not respond in the same way when the Paris police killed terrorists as they should have. This is not the first time Wallström's comments have kicked up a storm in Israel. Last month, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called his Swedish counterpart to protest similar accusations made by Wallström after she accused Israel of using disproportionate force against Palestinians. Marko Dudkiewicz, IBA News.
France's chief rabbi, Chaim Corsia, today rejected a call by the head of the Jewish community in Marseille advising Jews to refrain from wearing skull caps during concerns for their safety amid the ongoing anti-Semitic attacks. Corsia declared that Jews should not bow down to terror, saying, "We should not give in an inch." However, the head of the Marseille Jewish community, Tzvi Amar, said he made the plea because Jews are being targeted. His statements came just a day after the Jewish teacher was attacked with a knife, making it the 3rd attack on a Jewish person in the city in recent months. Roger Zuckerman, head of the Karif, the country's umbrella group of Jewish organizations, also rejected Amar's calls, saying it reflected a defeatist attitude. The European Union is strongly opposed to the BDS movement and denounces any boycott against Israel. That's the word from European Commissioner for Research, Science and Innovation, Carlos Moedas, who is responsible for the EU's program for cooperation with Israel. In an exclusive interview with Israel Television's Oren Nahari, Moedas said cooperation between Israel and the EU is beneficial for both sides.
The European Commission and the European Union is against boycotts and it's against BDS. That's absolutely right, and that's absolutely our view.
The BDS campaign troubles Israel, which is seriously concerned over the possibility of a boycott and a growing sense of businesses not wanting to deal with Israeli products on their shelves. preferring items from countries that are much less controversial. But the EU's Research and Science Commissioner, Carlos Moedas, says that Europe wants and needs Israel.
I don't know any scientist, any researcher in Europe that doesn't really love to work with Israeli scientists. You know, I have 28 countries. I go all over, and people always have an Israeli researcher, an Israeli scientist, and they have the highest opinion. They want to work with you. They want to be part of it, and they want to work together.
The cooperation is mutual. In the previous research program, Israel invested 535 million euros and received 875 million euros in return. In the present program, Horizon 2020, Israel has invested so far 194 million euros and received 276 million. The money goes directly to R&D in Israel.
In 20 years of this great cooperation, and those 20 years were more than 3,000 projects, representing more than 330 grantees from our European Research Council. You know that to be a grantee of the European Research Council, you have to be one of the best of the world. And looking at a country like Israel, having more than 330 people that got grants above 2.5–3 million euros, that means a lot. And so Israel enjoyed a lot of these funds, not because it was Israel, but because Israel is excellent, and these people are in a competitive environment. They go to these calls, they get the money because they deserve the money.
Relations may be promising when it comes to research and technology, but then there's politics. There are differences of opinions over the Palestinians and the Jewish settlements. The EU has started to label products from communities in Judea and Samaria. Next week, the EU foreign ministers are convening and will likely discuss additional proposals to pressure Israel.
You need it, but we need you. We need your people, and your people need us. And so it's really important for both sides. And I think that if we enlarge the cooperation in science and innovation, I think that will be a trigger to solve other problems.
The visit of Carlos Moedas is a success for both sides. It's a high-profile tour which includes top-level meetings with leaders of Israeli high-tech. For his part, Moedas is frustrated with the constant comparison between the European Union and the United States.
I normally say that the European Union is very, very, very good in actually basically transforming euros, money, into knowledge, but is not as good in transforming that knowledge back into euros or back into money.
Europe is primarily conservative and divided into 28 countries. Israel, with its easygoing, improvising character and quest for high-tech innovations, is what it is seeking. While politics may be making headlines, the economy of scientific research thrives.
The annual Taglit Birthrights Program's mega event took place last night in Jerusalem. Thousands of participants from around the world gathered in the capital's Binyanei Ha'uma, where Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu rallied them with a stirring speech, reminding them of their role in securing the future of the Jewish people.
You're joining over 500,000 young people from 66 countries who've already experienced Taglit, because now you're discovering something very simple. This land is your birthright. And I think you've already gotten a taste of what Israel has to offer. An unparalleled sense of our common past, an inspiring glimpse into our common future. This is called the Promised Land. It's a promised land, it's a land of promise. A people of exceptional warmth and hospitality. And now that you've had this opportunity to see Israel for yourselves, its beauty, its energy, its dynamism, its diversity, I think you can each feel in your own hearts the exceptional bond that connects us all to one another. This is the greatest thing that Taglit does. It's a discovery. It's a personal and collective odyssey for all of you. And I want you to treasure what you got here. I want you to keep this sense of our commonality, because we have a responsibility for the future of the Jewish state and the Jewish people. You're young. You're going to continue to be young for a while. And as you grow, remember that it's your responsibility to assure the future of the Jewish people. So I want you to keep what you've learned here in Israel deep in your hearts, but I want you to share it with other people, to share it with your friends, with your communities, and I want you to enjoy your stay. I want you to come back soon. I want all of you to know that you have a home in Israel. This is your birthright. Come back again. Thank you.
3 American citizens and a Belgian national have filed suit in a U.S. federal court against the government of Israel, seeking damages for injuries they claimed occurred during the Israeli army takeover of the Gaza flotilla in May 2010. At the time, Israel had called on a 7-boat flotilla making its way to Gaza to turn back, saying all the goods would be transferred to Gaza over land. The calls were ignored, and fierce clashes erupted between activists on the boat and Israeli soldiers boarding them. 9 Turks were shot dead, and soldiers and passengers were injured. Lawyers representing the 4 said they intend to argue that because one of the ships was flying a U.S. flag, U.S. law should apply on board. Israel has 60 days from the time the suit was filed to respond. A senior Israeli defense official has voiced concern over Jordan's future stability due to the escalation of Islamic State activities on its borders. Speaking to the Israeli Defense Journal this week, Reservist General Amos Gilad, director of the ministry's political bureau, said Jordan is dealing with dramatic changes and the large influx of Syrian refugees entering the Hashemite kingdom. Gilad added that there is no doubt the Islamic State is trying to penetrate Jordan from Iraq and Syria. Gilad's comments came as Jordan's King Abdullah met with U.S. Defense Secretary Ash Carter in Washington to discuss what was described by the American administration as mutual concerns in the region, including the ongoing crisis in Syria. Here at home, another senior official at the Ashkelon municipality has been arrested on suspicion of involvement in the city's corruption scandal. The man is suspected of taking bribes, money laundering, and breach of trust. His remand has been extended along with that of Ashkelon Mayor Tamar Shimoni, who was detained last week on alleged charges of sex crimes, including rape and sexual harassment, and taking bribes from contractors, which he allegedly used to pay his female compliants in order to keep them silent. Health Minister Yaakov Litzman wants to initiate a reform by opening up the medical cannabis market to farms and sellers, with the aim of making it easier to acquire for those who need it. According to the Litzman plan, there will be no restriction on the number of dealers as long as quality and safety requirements are met. Growers must be registered and receive a license, allowing them to deal with the trade. Litzman vowed that when the reform is implemented, there will be strict supervision. The medical marijuana will be distributed in the form of cookies and oil and cigarettes. There are currently 8 farms legally allowed to grow cannabis plants in the country. 2 Israeli scientists at the Weizmann Institute have developed a groundbreaking technique to treat early-stage prostate cancer. Mexico recently approved a drug based on bacterial chlorophyll. IBA's Margot Dudkevich has this report.
The story began some 20 years ago, when Professor Victor Schertz started researching germs that live in the sea that can photosynthesize light into something else known as radicals that today we know can fight cancerous tumors. Together with Professor Yoram Salomon, they tried to manipulate the bacteria with artificial light. Over $400 million have been invested in the development of the cure for prostate cancer, common among elderly men. The treatment consists of an intravenous infusion injected into the vein, followed by an infrared laser light guided by ultrasound that attacks the diseased tissue without touching non-cancerous tissues. A few months ago, human trials were completed and declared successful. Over 80% of those who participated in the trials reported the tumours did not return after a one-time treatment of 90 minutes and cured. The organic treatment claims to do away with the side effects of conventional treatment, such as impotence and a loose bladder. The medicine is on the verge of being approved in Europe, and 2 weeks ago the Mexican Medical Association gave permission to start marketing it. Margot Dudkevich, IBA News.
In money news, shares were mixed on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange, while the shekel was mixed in foreign currency trading. Here are the afternoon numbers. Turning to the weather, and the forecast is calling for partly cloudy skies tomorrow with scattered showers starting in the north and spreading southward. Temperatures are expected to drop and it will be a little colder. Here are the expected highs and lows at home and abroad for the next 24 hours. That's all for today. I'll be back again at this desk tomorrow to bring you the latest news from Israel. Until then, I'm IBA O'Sullivan thanking you for watching. Shalom from Jerusalem.